What's going on? It's your boy MastaB here live from the MMB radio studios for the MMB radio podcast where no topic is too big or too small. We talk about them all. And today's guest on the podcast is a woman who has been in the adult industry for over 2 decades. She has done it all, like literally has done it all. And we're going to talk to her tonight. She's been nominated for some AVN awards coming up, also T awards. She's won multiple awards. Like, there's just so much that we have to get into with my next guest. So I want to welcome her in right now, Miss Sinn Sage. Sinn, what's going on?
Hello, nice to be here.
Now, do you go by Sinn? Should I call you Miss Sage? Like, how do you like to be recognized?
Yeah, I go by Sinn.
Sinn is okay. I want to make sure we're doing the all proper, formal way here with the proper respect, because you've been in this industry for, like I said, over 2 decades. That's quite a while. And I guess my first question, and people are intrigued and want to know, is you started at the age of 19, and how did you get into this business, and why did you want to get into this business?
Yeah, very common question for sure. So I've just always been like a theater person. I've just loved the art of performance since I was, probably 5. Like the first time I saw somebody with a camcorder, I was just running in front of it. I was like, wanted to be on the camera, wanted to be on the stage always. I was in community theater growing up. I was in show choir. I was in high school drama. My dad was a drama teacher. So I've just always been, very much into all of that stuff. And then in, kind of around puberty, I was just feeling like a very sexual person as well. And I guess it just felt like incorporating those 2 elements was something that I would have a lot of passion for. So I was ready to be a stripper by the time I turned 18. I went out and tried to find the work that I wanted. So it's not, the question of, how did you get into this is, well, I seeked it out. This is what I wanted for my life. So I went and got it.
Now, what was the feedback from people, like family, were they accepting of it? Because some families are okay with it. Some families are kind of, shun them and disown them. And some people are doing this and their families still don't know after 2 decades of doing it.
Right. Yeah, obviously I'm aware of all that. I think it's really sad, being shunned for any reason. If you're living your life the way that feels good for you and you're not hurting other people, then, what's there to be ashamed of? I just don't see it. But, yeah, so, I've been extremely lucky, extremely blessed in my life. I will say, I think my parents maybe didn't take me too seriously when I talked about wanting to become a stripper. And then when I actually did it, it was a lot, strangely enough, it was a lot tougher for my mom to sort of accept that I was a sex worker than it was for my dad. And again, I think it's because, like, my dad, he valued performing arts.
Mm-hmm.
So to him, it was just, another thing, like I was pursuing a career in the performing arts. So he was actually pretty proud. My mom, it took a while for her to get on board. She found out that I was in videos and stuff probably a couple years after the fact, a few years after the fact. Also because both my parents were teachers at the high school that I went to. And by the time I started doing porn and stuff, I've been graduated for several years, and she heard some kids talking about it, actually, that I was, in videos and on the internet and stuff. And that's how she found out. At first she struggled with it. I think she had this vision in her mind that a lot of people still have of some kind of like skanky, I don't know, hairy-chested dude with like chains around his neck, smoking a cigar, telling us how to fuck. Like, I just feel like there's this stereotype of what it looks like to work in porn. That's just so far from the truth. And I think she had a little bit of that and just was struggling with that. And then I had a very serious accident where I hit my head and got a traumatic brain injury in 2009. And when that happened, there was just this overwhelming outpouring of support from fans for sure, but also from the directors and the other performers I had worked with. And, you know, a lot of those directors were women. And so they were calling and reaching out to my mom and just trying to find out what was going on with me and showing concern. And she, after the fact, told me that that experience really changed her perception of the industry in a positive way. And after that, she's just been very supportive. So I'm just one of the lucky ones, I guess, in many ways.
I was going to say, I mean, I mean, when you first said about your father being accepting of it, that was the first thing I thought of. It's like, okay, well, he's taught drama. He's, to him, this is just another extension of the arts. It's another way of expressing yourself through, art and creativity. And it's crazy because I feel like even now, I mean, it's 2022 and we're slowly continuing to, I feel like, turn that corner of where sex work is not being looked at as a negative thing. Obviously, there's going to be people that are still going to have their opinions on it and their strong values that are saying, you're not going to change their mind. But that's really cool that that these people reached out to your mother and were like, hey, like, we're really concerned. It goes to show you that there's compassion from that side of the world.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And I think that was a big part of it, just seeing that compassion, that empathy, that actual care, that, these aren't just people who, quote unquote, exploit me. These are human beings who have humanity and care about me.
Yeah, they're not just screwing all day.
Yes, God. Yeah, and I mean, I think there are a lot of good signs for sex work coming out recently. Just the fact that it's being talked about at all. The fact that John Oliver just did a segment on sex work. Like, these things it's starting to come out into, sort of like mainstream thought that, maybe we need to look at this differently. And then we have examples around the world of places that have looked at it differently, and they're safer and they're thriving because they've accepted that there are some aspects of humanity that you can't, you can't just turn it into a crime and make it go away.
Definitely.
So it's hopeful.
Now, I mean, you are pretty much known as the queen of girl scenes. Now, why girl? Like, why, what drew you to wanting to be the be-all to tell-all of those scenes?
Yeah, so when I first got in the industry, I was in a serious relationship with a guy. And so it was never really like a consideration I even made. Like, I don't remember sitting there and thinking, I want to do porn, but am I going to do boy girl? Am I not going to do boy girl? Like, my brain didn't even think that way when I was first getting into the industry. It was kind of just like, well, yeah, I want to make porn, and I'm obviously not going to sleep with other guys because I have my boyfriend, and so I'm going to work with girls. And like, that's kind of how I imagine it all got started. Like, it wasn't really much of obviously I didn't know anything about the industry, so I didn't know, how that would be different one way or the other. It was just kind of like, well, this is what I'm willing to do, and this is what works for my relationship at the moment. And I knew I was, a queer person. I guess I wouldn't have called it queer when I was younger. Like, I realized I was attracted to women as well as men when I was, 13, like 12, 13. So yeah, it just was like, here's a thing that I want to do. And turns out that I was just, I'm just really good at it. And so, even to this day, it's like, I feel that at least my sexuality is so much on a spectrum, and where I'm at any given moment is sliding around on that spectrum somewhere. And, when I finally left that relationship, I was much older. I'd been in the industry for like 9 years. So I could have decided at that time to start working with men, but I thought I'd give it some time after I left that relationship and just really think about it before I made a decision like that. And then I'm really glad ultimately that I didn't. I think, it's not for me. It's just not for me. I'm not attracted to men in the same ways that I'm attracted to women. And I'm not sure that I would, do my best or put on my best performance or really have much of a desire to sleep with, most of these like porn guys. But I just love being with all women. So, I guess that's kind of how I would explain it. This is just what feels best for me. It's what works best for me. It's what makes me feel good and proud and just happy with what I do. And I don't shame or begrudge anyone for making a decision for themselves that's different from the one I make for myself,
Yeah, and I mean, you've been recognized for it, being, having won an AVN for Best Girl Sex Scene, as well as AVN Awards for Girl Performer of the Year. Tell us, what is that feeling like to be recognized for it? I mean, it's one thing to feel passionate about what you're doing and explaining to people that this just feels natural to you, but to be recognized by your peers and critics and fans, kind of give us into that emotional feeling of how that feels to be recognized for your work.
Yeah. It is, you're right. And it is one thing, like I have fans, every single day telling me, that what I do is, amazing. And, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of women, like I'm sure I have many, many male fans. I know that I do, but the ones who I hear from the most, the ones that are very vocal and outgoing and reach out to me, usually women, and most of the time they're telling me, watching you has helped me to understand who I am and to accept who I am and to live as who I am. And so obviously that is the number one most rewarding thing for me, like no doubt. But, coming up in the business and going to AVN Awards and just kind of like realizing there were moments where I was like, this will never be me. I don't do the kinds of things that this industry tends to recognize. Of course, that was like 10 years ago, let's say, or more. And I do kind of feel like that's how things were back then. So I was just like, I just accepted, like, it would be nice to get that recognition from my peers, but I just don't see it happening. So in 2013, when I got the nomination, I was like, oh, this is nice. And I was like, yes, that is an amazing scene, incredible scene that we did. But I just didn't believe that they would give it to me. I just was like, they're not going to give that to me. I'm not one of those people who gets those things. And then we won. And it was, I kind of hate to say it, but it really was a career like peak for me, for sure, because I felt like I had deserved it at that time, but that I just wasn't going to get it. And so the fact that I got it was an overwhelming sense of pride and joy, for sure.
Now you mentioned about how you didn't think you were going to win the award. Just being kind of nominated and kind of recognized was one thing, but to win it is another. Do you still feel like there's some kind of stigma still in the adult industry? I mean, because people think, the adult industry, to think that, oh, it's all, free willy-nilly, that anybody, can do anything. But are there still stigmas and still, like, I don't know how to phrase it, like the discriminations of sorts in the industry that you still notice?
I mean, yes, for sure. I think that it's just sort of human nature a little bit to have, to make stereotypes, to make stigmas, to believe certain things when you don't have access to all the information, or I think that's just, again, like part of being human. But definitely in the industry, there's still to this freaking day some stigmas against women working with men who are what we call like crossover performers, like bisexual performers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that at this point is just bigoted. I don't really feel like there's any other way of looking at it. So that happens. Racial things still happen, women of color getting paid less for scenes than white women doing the same job. Men of color being treated, like they're always cast as thugs or whatever, and they're never cast as like doctors and just shit like that. I mean, these are just like common complaints that people have that like it still goes on.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, even after, when the big sort of the reckoning of 2020, porn was, we had a part of that too, at least in the sense of Black performers and creators and stuff. And so it was like we had some industry gatherings and Zoom talks and things like this. And everybody seemed to be on the same page. But then when it comes down to it, you have these producers who, kind of like they're the ones in control of this mainstream stuff. And they are going to do what they're going to do. And if people stopped, like spending their money on stuff that was like that, that's the only way it's ever going to change. So it's hard to see that happening. But, so yeah, I mean, I think just like every other industry, for sure, we've got stigmas and we've got problems, and all we can do is try to like beat the change. And, luckily, the industry has shifted way more, especially since 2020, towards self-produced content. And so a lot of the stuff that's coming out now is like from, the performers themselves, rather than, like big budget mainstream porn companies. And you see a lot more diversity and inclusivity happening in these spaces. And so, if I can tell your listeners anything, I would say please support like indie creators. Find like a performer you like and then go watch their stuff and go buy stuff from them, rather than always going to, like Brazzers and sites like that who they're just going to keep doing the same shit.
Well, one of the things I can say is two different things that I notice here from my notes is that the way you're breaking barriers. A lot of people tend to, at least some of the listeners that I have kind of steered away from the trans stuff. And I know that you have your movie Sinn Trans Lesbian Lovers, which was nominated for a AVN Award for Best Trans Movie. So first off, congratulations on that for the nomination. And kind of explain what that is like working with trans, because a lot of people like listening, and I have a lot of listeners like, oh, I love listening to your podcast, I love the guests you have on, and then when I bring on somebody a little bit different, a little outside of box or outside of the norm of what some of these people may watch or view, they tend to get turned off by it and are like, nah, that's not for me. If you had to convince people, to kind of look into something different, explain to them why this is something that they should watch and check out.
Well, first of all, I kind of feel that when it comes to our sexuality and our sexual preferences, that's such an internal, our sexual desires, things like that. It's very personal and internal, and I'm not sure that I would try to convince anyone that you should enjoy this thing. If this thing is not your thing, then, I'm not going to try to force you to enjoy it. Like, mm-hmm. I don't watch porn at all, really, but, like maybe I think a lot of straight women, they like to watch, gay male sex, and they get turned on by it. Even lesbians watch it. They think it's really hot, and that's awesome. Good. I've shot gay sex before, like done camera for it, and I love that it's out there. I celebrate queerness in all of its aspects, but personally, I don't that doesn't turn me on to watch. So I'm not going to say, well, you're a bigot because you don't like watching like gay sex scenes or whatever. Like, mm-hmm. I just don't think there's a correlation there. But that being said, when it comes to working with trans women, I have come along on my own journey with transness because I think everybody, we all start from a place of ignorance. If I had never known a trans person, I had never met a trans person, then it's not that I don't understand it. It's just that I don't have that knowledge. And so I think I used to kind of objectify seems like a stupid thing to say, but fetishize transness a little bit and just be like, I used to think that I really wanted to sleep with a trans woman because it was the best of both worlds. Like, I got boobs and I got a dick, and that was a really ignorant way of thinking. It was a really dehumanizing way of thinking. And now that I know tons of trans women and I work with them and I'm friends with them, I understand that it's just that it's not like a woman with a man. It's just a woman, and her parts just look a little different than my parts, and that's totally fine. So I think the important thing is really just recognizing other people's identity and humanity, and not just treating them with the way that you have this idea or this stereotype in your head. So I think if people are willing to be open-minded, and especially watching my trans lesbian movie, is when I approach a trans woman to do a scene with me, I'm like, how do you like to have sex? How do you identify with your parts? And how do you like to use them? And then we will do a sex scene based on that, rather than a lot of mainstream companies that make trans porn, which, by the way, I find it interesting what you said before, because it is blowing up right now. Trans porn has never been as popular as it has been in the past few years. But yeah, so with my movie, it's just very mainstream companies, if they're making a trans scene, the trans girl has to fuck the other girl with her dick, has to use her penis like that. And I don't want to require that. If a trans girl likes to use her penis like that and does do it well, then fuck yeah, let's go. But if she doesn't, which a lot don't, they don't identify with it like that, and they're just like, this is, that's not how it feels good for me, then I'm like, cool, what else can we do? Can I put my mouth on it? Can I fuck you with a strap on, which that's what I prefer to do in all cases anyway. So, that's why I make sort of, I call what I make indie porn, queer indie porn, because, we don't have big budgets. We do not have capital to be putting together these huge, expensive scenes. It's literally just, I've got enough equipment, good equipment, camera, lights, and all that to just get with another creator, and we shoot usually in our own homes, and we just, I just want it to be this is how real people have sex, this is how real queer people have sex, this is the type of sex that you could be having too, I like to do it like that.
I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I think the days of these big, expensive storylines where there's a lot of, scenery and acting going on is kind of gone away. I mean, I know a lot of people that fast forward through all that to just get to the sex part. So it's a lot of the indie stuff kind of is that now, where there's not a whole lot of, dialogue, a whole lot of, acting, kind of the gonzo style of it. Which kind of brings up to the point that you have your own production company. So tell everybody about this production company. What made you want to get involved in it? What compelled you to want to start your own production?
Gosh, I think that, I just reached a point where I'm like, I've been doing just performance for so long. I want to be able to do things other than just perform. And I know this industry so well because I've been here for a while. So just a combination of wanting to like sort of branch out in the things that I am able to do. And then around the time of like Pornhub coming out, that was a big blow for the industry. And I noticed I wasn't getting as many bookings, and stuff. And so I had started camming, and all of a sudden around that time, I'm getting like a lot of emails from people asking about custom videos. And I was like, well, I don't make them because I don't have equipment and I don't know what I'm doing with that really. But I just was like, why can't I do this? And so I put like a little Sony Handycam on my wish list, and I got like a $25 light and had a friend teach me how to edit. You know, I got like an editing program and started out just really basic, making custom videos. And then it just grew from there really, to where, you know, now I'm making custom videos. That's a big part of my job, producing custom videos. So that's how we learned basically how to shoot. And, you know, I learned all that stuff, and then he's now my husband, but at the time he was my boyfriend, and I taught him how to shoot camera and taught him how to edit. And then he really like learned and then took that to the next level. Like he's way better than I am now with those things. And so, yeah. And then I was just like, you know, I've got all these scenes. I'd love to like make full length movies. So I can like submit for awards and just shit like that. Like I wanted to make the porn that I wanted to see. That's what I like to say. I wanted to make the porn that I wanted to see in the world. So I asked Courtney Trouble, who had already been running Trouble Films, an indie queer porn company for many years. And I was like, you know, maybe I could just pick your brain on like how to start a studio. And they were like, well, why don't you just put together a movie and you'll distribute it through Trouble Films and then you'll have a studio. And I was like, oh shit, all right, let's do it. And
that's simple.
That's what happened.
Now that's really cool to be able to have that creative control, like you said, to be able to shoot videos and films the way you envision it. But has there ever been a time where you've felt you had to or felt the need to turn down ideas because it was something that was just not gelling with how you saw it from an artistic standpoint or just a, you know, comfortable moral standpoint? Was there ever a time that you said, yeah, I can't do that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with custom orders, you know, I get inquiries all day long. So obviously there are going to be some that are in there that, you know, can you make a custom video where you do X, Y, and Z? And I'm just like, oh, hell no. I'm not making a video like that. Like, if you can find someone else, you know, more power to you. But, like, I am not doing that. Whether it's, like, you know, race play or farting. Like, I won't make farting videos.
I mean, there's people that fart in bottles. Or what was that one girl? She's online. She's selling her fart.
Yes.
I mean,
but she had a leg up because she was on like a TV show, like 90 Day Fiance or something. So she could sell her farts for that much. If I tried to sell my farts for like $1,000 a jar, that people would be like, no.
I wouldn't even be able to make the money back for the cost of the jar, you know.
Exactly.
I'm returning them back to Michael's or something. Like, yeah, I don't need these little jars anymore. Like,
yeah,
you know,
I tried.
Tell your neighbors, thanks for saving the baby food jars, but I don't need them anymore. They can go into recycling, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and I mean, I've definitely, you know, I'm sorry to say I have done things in my past that, you know, as far as making videos that I would absolutely not ever do again. But that's the big difference too between, you know, when I was younger and I didn't produce my own stuff. It was very much like I had to take every job opportunity I got because I was trying to survive under capitalism. So I had to take the jobs, even if it was something that I wasn't feeling super comfortable with doing. And that's where, you know, learning to produce my own clips and sell in my clip stores, like ManyVids and Clips for Sale and stuff. It really gave me that power because now I have this income. As long as I keep the stores running and updated, like, I have income from selling my own stuff. And so I have way more power over what I do, who I do it with now. And so I don't even have to make those types of decisions anymore, which is nice. It's just like, if you are like, come shoot for this site, and I see what the site is and I just morally disagree with it, I'm just like, no, I'm good. Thanks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice place to be.
Now, tell me a time where someone sent you a request for a video, and when you saw the request, you were like, hell fucking yeah, I can't wait to do this. And what was that? What was that scene like?
Anytime somebody requests like either just a sex scene video, me strap on with another girl, I'm like, hell yes. Anytime they request a sex scene like with me and my husband Drake, I'm like, hell yes. We've had a few where people wanted a threesome with me and Drake and a third model. Like, those are probably my favorite. Like, love that shit. So I like making the sex scenes. Those are my favorite. But that being said, I do also love doing fetish videos that require like acting and character, and maybe they're a little silly. One category is like embarrassed naked female. Those can sometimes be pretty like complex and interesting, with sort of characters and funny things happening, and those are always like sort of, they're a little stressful only because there's like a lot to do, and a lot to keep in mind, but at the same time they're really fun because you get to sort of like play a fun silly character. Those are the types of things I do enjoy making, for sure.
Now, listeners that are listening, whether they be male, female, trans, however they identify themselves, what's the one big piece of advice you could give to anybody who's looking to get into this business, who is looking to kind of jumpstart their career?
Yeah,
I know that's
really
a loaded
hard.
question.
Yeah, like, first of all, I will just tell you, like, all your listeners, please don't ask porn stars this question. Like, please don't. we get asked that question probably like 100 times a week. It's ridiculous. And the truth is too, like, in the past I used to kind of take the time to explain to men like what all they'd have to go through. And anymore I'm just like, no. When they say, how do I get in the industry? I say, you don't. Because you just don't. Now if girls ask me, that's a whole different question, and I'm happy to give advice to women.
And that's why I phrased it that way, of male, female, however they identify themselves, because I sometimes think that guys have a different like mindset when they say, how do I get into the business? Because they're not looking to get into the business because it's something that they, want to be able to express themselves or find it as a way to make ends meet as far as financial. They're looking at it because they're trying to fuck. So they have, they think with their other head. But I guess, like, as you were beginning to explain, for females who are looking to get into the business, like, because I mean that could be a scary road for people who are not well diverse in the ins and outs of the business, because you hear horror stories of people being taken advantage of. So that's why I said, like, what's one thing that you would recommend to these girls that are listening that are like, hey, I just kind of need a little direction.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, look, my base level advice for everyone, boys and girls, is kind of like, use your phone and start making stuff. Start shooting stuff. Learn how to use an editing program. Get yourself a cheap little light. I mean, you start with the very basics, and you grow from there, and you post your shit, and you're going to post your shit in these stores or whatever for years before you're going to like start building something. You are going to, have to get on Twitter, and you're going to have to use it. You have to use these spaces to promote yourself. There's no way to grow a following besides just starting from zero and working your way up. But owning your own content, owning your brand and all that stuff, just like for any influencer, that's so important. Now, 10 years ago, my advice would probably be even different, but here's where we are now. And like, so I say to anyone again, don't set your sights on, working for Brazzers or fucking Wicked or Adult Time or any of that shit. Like, if you're not in LA and you have what it takes, then that's not the way to go about things. Start from zero, make your own shit, own your own shit, and build something. And that's like my biggest advice for anyone. That being said, you know, for men, I know you asked me about women, but for men, I just want to say real quickly, like, the reason why most of them don't even try is because, like, you have to be able, like, I think all guys maybe think in their head when they're in their house fucking their girlfriend, I could do that. I could keep my dick hard as long as I want. I can come when you tell me to come. But then when you're in a room where you've got, you know, 3 to 6 men standing around you, waiting on your fucking ass to come, and a girl looking up at you like, fucking, how long is this going to take? Can you hurry up and finish? Or your dick went down in the middle of it because of all those people staring at you with all that pressure, and then you can't get it back up, and everyone's looking at you like, you're wasting all of our time here.
Time is
money.
money.
That level of pressure is huge. And, you know, men don't, generally speaking, don't get paid as much as women in this industry. And although it's the only industry where that happens, I think also that, to be honest, it's a little unfair because the men's job is way harder. So, you know, I think people need to realize that it's almost like a superpower that it's very rare for someone to have. But for women, again, it's very much, I have that same advice. I'm like, use your phone and get a little stand and try filming yourself. Film yourself doing a solo scene, playing with a toy, then watch it and be like, what do you like about the performance? Are you turned on by what you just did? What do you see that you think would be hotter or better? Like, how can you improve yourself? And then start being on Twitter, start retweeting other porn stars, start reaching out to other porn stars, start trying to like infiltrate the community and connect with it. And then you can really grow from there. I mean, I've seen people who started with nothing and then just kind of like reached out to other porn stars, shot content trade with them, and now they're really building something. So, that's all the advice that I would say. Next for women, I would say, like, do not just try to shoot something with every guy that slides into your DMs. You know what I mean? That happens a lot, especially when you make like a mini vid store and stuff. You'll get hit up by just like random dude creators who are like, hey, let's collaborate. You know, I don't work with men, but I would just say that, like, I would do my research with every single person that tried to hit me up, and I would be like, is this an industry professional? Is this someone who has like references that I see them working with other porn stars that I know, that I would trust them to say, is this guy cool or not? The other thing is, like, fill out your model releases before you even shoot the scene. Do not let someone like leave the set without having filled out that model release, because then you might never get it from them, and then you can't use that content. So I think I've seen a lot of like predatory guys in the business doing shit like that all the time. And, you know, I think it's better to come in with a little bit of like street smarts, you know, a little bit of wariness about who you work with, and just like understanding the possibilities of what can happen. And also you want to be strong-minded and strong-willed. You want to know what your boundaries are before you start. And those can shift and change as you grow and change yourself. But you need to be very clear about your boundaries with yourself before you're ever going to be able to be clear with someone else. And it's important for you to be clear with other people when you're making sex scenes with them. So some of that is like a little, there's the intro chapter.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, that's one of the questions that I always seem to get from fans, you know, and that's the great thing is that having done this podcast for as long as I have, having had female listeners who listen in and they're like, hey, they'll send me DMs and I'll say, you know, I really love listening to your podcast. And I always was curious of like how, you know, girls can get into this industry and what kind of advice they would give to women. Because, like you said, you have to have a little bit of street smarts. The common sense goes a long way. You know, mm-hmm. I tell people, I said, obviously, I'm not in your industry. I know people that are. I've interviewed people that are, you know, that are in the adult industry. But having come from like a radio, background, I tell people all the time that, the adult industry is so much like any other industry, whereas, there are traps, there are people that are looking to, take advantage, I mean, just because it's the adult world and people automatically think, oh, adult, taboo, everybody's out to get you. You could be a singer. You could be, a mainstream actor or an actress, and the same horror stories could happen.
Of course. I mean, I think a lot of times people, obviously sex is just vilified in our culture. It's always been that way. But definitely, when everyone's like, look at porn stars, look at sex workers, they're all victims of abuse. They're all victims of, each other. And
they all have daddy issues. And,
God. And
all they do is get on set and get high and, like.
Oh, God, right. No, nobody's doing that anymore. I mean, if they are, it's pretty much they stop getting work.
Not everything plays out like the movie Boogie Nights. Not everybody,
God, exactly. And I think that movie had a lot of respectful things in it too. But
one of my favorite movies, by the way.
Yeah, it's amazing. And obviously Paul Thomas Anderson just has like a love affair with porn and the Valley in LA. But yeah, I just it's interesting that people really highlight that aspect of this industry when I'm pretty sure you could take a poll of workers in any fucking industry, and you will find misogyny, you will find trauma, you will find people who were sexually abused as children, you will find sexual harassment. Across the board. It
happens everywhere.
And a lot of people who are, sex workers who came from other industries are like, I cannot believe how much more treated with respect I am in this industry than I ever was being a waitress or a lawyer or a retail worker or whatever, like especially as a woman, and for some reason, but that's okay for you to take that abuse because you're not then, profiting off of your own body or means of production. For some reason, like that's not okay. I can't make it make sense in my mind, but yeah, I wish people understood that like all humans have to deal with traumas and have to deal with these things. So it's not exclusive to the sex industry.
And I have to say, having again done this for so long and having met so many people in the industry and became friends with people in the industry, yeah, there you hear horror stories, you hear where people are taken advantage of. But again, like I mentioned, that can happen in any field, in any realm of entertainment, or not even entertainment-wise, just any form of life that can happen.
Yeah,
But there is also some positive I can say from the world of adult entertainment, because it is at times a very close-knit family of people, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of the people have gone through some of those same struggles or dealt with the same discriminations or stigmas and, being labeled and viewed and judged and all that. So I can at least say for that sense that it is very refreshing anytime I go to, Exotica or AVN and, you see people, and it's kind of like a reunion in a sense. You see people you haven't seen. And it's the one thing I want to get out of all these podcasts is that, when I interview people, that they're normal people. Like you're a normal person, and I think that gets lost because people hear, like you said, they hear the word porn, they hear adult, erotic, and then all of a sudden, like it's like all these like misconceptions pop up in their heads.
Yeah, and implications of what that all means,
exactly.
And like centuries of stigma just piling on your brain in that moment. And so yeah, it's like intimidating, overwhelming, can be scary, but you're totally right. Like the sense of community, when I moved to Vegas to try to like save up some money and settle here for a little while, and I knew the industry had been like slowly leaking over here from LA, but since I've been here, it's just been like, oh my gosh, it's like the sense of community that I feel with my fellow sex workers in this town it's amazing. I feel like there's just so much support. And yeah, and then so, for example, when I went to the TEA Awards, that was maybe like a month ago, and it was my first time doing any sort of like in-person industry event since 2020. And it just felt so good to like be around my people.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like, oh yes, like everyone in this building right now gets it. And it was such a nice again, reunion, like you said, saw a bunch of people I hadn't seen in years. It was just really wonderful and felt great. And so, yeah, we're a welcoming folk too. We're very open-minded, obviously. So, my experience by and large has just been overwhelmingly positive, and I've never once regretted this as a career choice for me. Like, it's just what makes sense for me.
Yeah, and you said a community, and a lot of people have the online presence and everything. So I want you to be able to go ahead and kind of rattle off where people can keep up to date with your things, where people can get your custom videos, because there's a lot of people out there that'll make fake accounts. Like, I'm constantly seeing people send me a DM or a follow on Instagram, and they're like, "Hey, thanks for being my #1 fan." I'm like, "Wait, you got 3 followers?" Like,
Yeah.
like there's so many fakes and frauds out there. So let everybody
Dude,
know where they
I
can find the real you.
Yes, I can't even tell you how many. Like, just the past 2 days, I've been dealing with somebody on Instagram who just like made a fake account, stole all my photos. I reported them, it got taken down. They just made another one.
Yeah, you can get
So
catfished real quick.
it's just ridiculous. So one thing I want to say for sure: if you think you're talking to your favorite porn star and they ask you to send them money, please don't.
Don't
Please
do
not
it.
do that. Fuck, don't do it. Just like go through their OnlyFans, go through their website. Like, make sure you can verify that you are talking to the actual them. If you can't, don't send them money. So yes, that's just a little a little important thing for everyone to know, because it happens like a ton. But the real me is on Twitter, I'm just at Sinn Sage. I try to keep it real simple. I try to keep myself easy to find. You spell that with 2 N's, so SINNSAGE. And then from there you can find like everything, but my website is free. It's where you can go and order custom videos. It's where you can go and buy the full length feature movies that I put out. I have a newsletter. I have models, pictures of the models that I work with for my customs. So it's sin-sage.com/custom videos if you want to go to the custom videos. But sin-sage.com. That's my website. From there, you can find my many vids. You can find my clips for sale. And then my onlyfans.com/sinsage, which I highly recommend. It's a really intimate fan club type experience. It's only $10 a month. I post tons of explicit content on the main feed. I talk with everyone in the DMs. I do a live stream once a week. Like, for the price, it is totally amazing. So hopefully you'll check that out too.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time to talk to us tonight and letting everybody kind of get a little more in detail depth of, who you are, because I know I've always been intrigued, and I always got to do this. I always have to shout out Tanya, because Tanya always hooks me up with the best guests. And when she's like, did you want to talk to Sinn? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want to talk to Sinn. Like, you've been in the game you've been in the game for so long that it's just like, it's an honor for me to be able to say that I've had people, as much as I love to have the new talent come on and kind of get that first crack at them when they're starting, it also is very, intriguing to hear people who have been in industry, who have witnessed and experienced things that many others have not yet experienced. And just having that insight is just really cool, because hopefully it answered a lot of questions for listeners that are always curious about how to get into the industry. And now they have ways to contact you, so make sure you go to our website, and I'm sure, she will gladly reply, don't know how quickly, but, definitely, hit her up. So it was really cool. But is there anything you want the fans to know that we didn't address?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I just I guess I am like, I can only speak for myself, but I am such a down to earth person. I'm so easy to get along with and talk to. So I don't know, like I said, don't be too intimidated by porn stars. Just please be respectful and remember that we're human beings, with hopes and dreams and all those things.
They're not unconscious. They have feelings, they do live
not,
normal lives, they walk their dogs. They even clean up the dog's poop, it's not.
We're not sex robots.
Yeah. They're not real life sex dolls, although they do love sex. They're not sex dolls.
We love sex, but we're people.
Yes.
Just try to keep that in mind. But yeah, otherwise, I think I said it all.
Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, because it's a true honor for me to be able to speak to you and have this dialogue with you, because I'm gonna leave this podcast and like just say to myself, like, I just spoke to Sinn Sage for like over 40 minutes. Like, that there is just a mind fuck for me. But with all that said, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and we can't wait to see and hear where the next part of this journey goes to. Continue to check out our website, Sinn, SINN dash Sage, SAGE.com. Check it all out right there, and don't get catfished.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me on. Much
Not a problem. We'll take care, and we'll hear from you soon.
Hey, this is Sinn Sage, queer porn star extraordinaire, and you're listening to MastaB on MMB Radio.